Have you pressed it? Hey.
There it is. All right.
Brilliant.
All right, the Hangout is now live. All right, welcome to the AdoptOpenJDK infrastructure call. I guess I'll start off by highlighting some of the recent stuff that has been done. We recently added a Red Hat 6 machine, so we made some changes to the playbooks to support that. Nothing major changed there, but just a few minor tweaks to make sure that everything was working correctly. One of the other problems that we were noticing last week was Nagios was very chatty, and Peter Stanton found another flag for the check proc process with -K. I went and implemented that, also updated the templates, so we won't be getting those too many processes warning pop-ups now. Nagios is still a little noisy, so we need to look into what we can do about fixing that a little bit further. And it appears right now that all of our systems from Oregon State University appear to be down. And I was hoping that Tim would have told us if they were doing any maintenance or anything like that right at the moment. But he mentioned in the Slack channel that he likes to just delete them. Other than that, we are having an issue 269 where some of the tests, but only on Red Hat, are having some issues with Ancontrib. And I believe at the moment it's because the test itself is expecting Ancontrib and the other jars to be in some other location. And I'm trying to get some additional information out of the test people of where they actually expect the jars to be located, as it is different between Ubuntu and Red Hat. Other than that, that's about all I have on my plate. Grant, what have you been up to?
The most recent thing was getting VNC on the JCK machines. That went fairly smoothly until Stuart asked me to run the playbook against the 390 machines that I didn't even realize were in the, well, they weren't in the list of machines, but somebody then went and added them. And then I couldn't get AWX Ansible to talk to those machines. Turns out that the username needed a change to use, what was it, Linux 1. And then it still wouldn't work because for some reason the password for Linux 1 seems to have changed. I fired off an email to Cindy Lee, who's a lady who looks after these machines. But the only reply I've had from her was, "Oh, really? It was working earlier. I'll have a look." I haven't heard anything back since.
So which host name was that? Was that the first one, the first Z box, was it?
It's the pair of the Z boxes.
It's the pair of them.
Okay,
so
I can still get into it. I can still get into it as root if you want me to do something on it.
If you can get it to root, can you add them to Keybox, please, Stuart?
Yeah, should be able to.
Because they're both on the Linux 1 user at the moment. If we can get root, then that solves all our problems. And we can obviously swap the inventory back to using root. So that'd be ideal.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, okay. Do you want me to reset the Linux 1 password just now? I can do that right now if you want me to.
That would,
if you do,
probably make sense.
But if you do, could you tell Cindy that you've done that so she doesn't do it again as soon as you've done it?
Yeah, okay.
And also update .gpg as well with that password.
We don't generally add the Unix passwords to the secrets repo, do we?
Well, we should add anything that's would be a backdoor to get back into a system if we lose something.
True. Okay.
And in this particular case, these systems didn't run the main playbook, so they wouldn't have got the super user account for Zeus.
That's true. Yeah, if we do need to look at adding that, actually, I can create that issue later. We should definitely add the Nagios stuff and the Zeus.
So were you able to get in, Stuart, because you're in Keybox and have root access?
I'm not sure if I actually did it through Keybox, but at one point I got my SSH key put on that machine as directly as root, so I can get in without, directly.
I have a very vague memory that I added Stuart's key to the pair of machines now I think about it when we first got them.
I think that's probably right, yeah.
It's possible that by luck Stuart's key's still there, but the main keybox one isn't. So that's fine, we can rectify that.
Okay, so we need to keep friendly with Stuart for the time being.
Yeah, that's how I was able to run the Ansible playbooks as well. Because it was directly from my own machine.
Okay, yeah, so the bottom line is you put VNC on those machines, so I don't really need to, so it takes the pressure off, but I'd like to get the Ansible and AWX working.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. For me, anyway.
All right, Shibum, do you have anything you would like to talk about?
Yeah, I could. So I would like to walk you guys through that API I submitted a pull request for. So let me bring it up. All right, so I'll start a screen share.
For anyone that isn't aware, this is the Jenkins Node helper API that's in a pull request at the moment.
So this is the pull request 278. So the main goal behind this API was to pretty much automate adding machine and basic maintenance tasks, such as keep making sure the labels are updated. So, and also the side benefit of that is that anyone who's using Jenkins can call those functions. So as in get CPU, count, get location, OS patch, memory space, total space, and get those stats in real time throughout the job. So this is a brief outline of what the functions are. And I can show you guys. Do you guys have access to the URV Jenkins?
Sorry, I missed that. Did you say we got access to which Jenkins?
That's is that the IBM internal one you're referring to?
Yes. Oh, okay. Never mind. So I'll show you guys the output of the jobs I've been. Okay. Wow. All right. Sorry, just a minute. Okay. So this is kind of what.
Oh, it's not 901. It's 902.
Right. All right, just a minute.
Yeah, yeah. Icon that stands for icon v open the file. So,
all right. There. So this is kind of what the kind of stats you can get from the API, and it pretty much. So I have a job setup which pretty much iterates through all of the machines on Jenkins and encourages them for these stats. And to walk you guys through the helper. There. So these are the methods that I've implemented in the API. So far, it can add all of the Linux, OS X, AIX, ZOS, and Windows machines. The only issue, there's just a minor issue with the Windows. But besides that, it can add all the machines. It can also query all of those functions I showed you for all the platforms except for ZOS, which I haven't been able to find the command for yet. I'm still looking through it. But it can get all the information for all the other ones. So it's OS X, AIX, Windows, Linux, and yeah. So that was
just very quickly. So obviously, this is great. I like what it is. So the idea is that it's going to go into our Jenkins in the community, and it will run I think you said it would sort of run on like a poll schedule, so it would run regularly.
Yeah.
And it's the idea that it then basically just loops through all the nodes and updates the labels and stuff to ensure that they're all correct.
That's right.
Is that one of the, that's the main feature? And what sort of, so you're showing me it's sort of fetching disk space and number of cores and stuff like that. Are they all then generated into labels as well? Or, I mean, have you got an example node you could show me with all its labels?
Yes.
I'm just curious as well.
So this is an example of what we have. So out of all the labels you see right now, the project label, the architect, software OS, tool, and those are all the labels that we generated. And anything that's, so eventually it's supposed to be, it will get the dynamic inventory file from Git and use that to double check with the machines on Jenkins to make sure all the machines on Jenkins are the ones in the inventory. And if we have any labels specified in the inventory file, it will add it to the machine.
Yeah, I like that. That is interesting. I mean, one of the questions I sort of had, I don't know whether anyone else thought that, but obviously, so you put the pull request into the infrastructure repo. Is this the correct repo to have it in, or should it be in its own GitHub repo? I mean, I'm not necessarily, I might be incorrect. I'd like to see what other people think. I feel like it almost deserves to be in its own repo where individual sort of issues for it can be created on its own.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely like that. That'd be nice separation, because I'm sure there'll be lots of nice enhancements that we'll want to do with it down the road. But this is great work. I've seen the demo before, and this is some really nice stuff to make sure that all the labels are correct. We didn't just copy and paste them from somewhere else.
So, and also from a reuse point of view, somebody else wanted to make use of this functionality. Being in its own repo would make that easier. If it was hidden in the middle of the infrastructure one, for example, it would be harder to pull out.
The main reason I would say this is, as Brad said, I think this is really awesome, and I think that there's a lot of exciting things that people are going to want to add to this. And you know, naturally, I think when this comes in, people are going to want to make tweaks. They might say, well, actually, we don't want that label, we want this label. And what I wouldn't want is for that to be bogged down in the infrastructure repo of basically machines going down all the time. I feel like, as Grant says, people are probably going to want to come and use this. That's the whole point of open source. So I feel like we should probably put this in like a Jenkins node helper repo. And then from there, the whole thing can be sort of separately managed. I'd like that. I think it can still be managed under the infra team. That's not an issue. But I feel like it needs to be in its own repo where people can really focus on how we can, you know, make it even better, because it's awesome. We should definitely, you know, look at implementing it as soon as possible.
So if it was to be open another repo, what would that be under?
Personally say is, I mean, it's up to you really. I would say something like AdoptOpenJDK, and then obviously OpenJDK. Well, you could probably just create a repo called Jenkins Node Helper or something. I'm happy to create that for you and then make you an owner of it. That would probably be the most logical thing. I think especially also as.
So looking at the repos that are already there, most of them do already start OpenJDK dash, but there are a few that don't.
Yeah.
You ditch that, would you?
Yeah, I can sit down with Shubham afterwards and help him create the repo.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Let's not bog down on that too much. I think the important thing is it's really great work. I think so. Just very quickly, I mean, obviously, so as I've mentioned to you before, Shubham, I added a pull request to originally create nodes as they run on Ansible. So my dream plan was that we were going to add a new machine to the inventory, run Ansible, and from that it would then create the Jenkins node, and then basically we would be good to go. my question for you would then be, are we better using your API to create the node? Can it handle that? Or should I still go ahead with my creation script and then use yours to regularly poll all of the nodes?
Well, so we had this discussion. I had a discussion with Adam and Joe, from what we didn't want to. The main reason why we decided to use this API instead of through Ansible was we didn't want to tie the two systems together. So maybe once the machine is set up, Ansible could poke a job on Jenkins, say, "Hey, this machine is ready to be added." And
yeah, so we could easily enough use the Jenkins API to schedule a job. So what I'm saying, your node helper API is able to basically go ahead and create a new node, the IP, and then could do the rest of the work. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's ideal. I think, yeah, if we can drop the pull request I'm doing then and work on that basis, I think that's clean. I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, our vision for the ideal scenario was that there'd be a standalone, self-contained job on Jenkins that would grab the inventory file, compare it to the Jenkins nodes, and then sync them up by adding new nodes, and maybe setting Slack notifications if there's stuff that's in Jenkins that's not in the inventory file, and then going through and adding all the labels and any hard-coded labels that were in the inventory file that were additional for like stuff you can't scan for, type of thing.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I know there's still a bit of debate going on about the label schema. So I'm not sure whether we wish to sort of settle that debate with the build and testing teams before we merge something like this, or whether we want to just go ahead and then work it out later. I remember, I think both myself and Stuart, felt that perhaps the schema that Shelley proposed could be perhaps a bit too noisy, in the sense of there was a lot of sort of stuff at the start of the labels that I felt wasn't hugely important. But I mean, I'm certainly open to anything. Either way, we're going to basically have to go and change either some build jobs or some test jobs, because I definitely want us to have a universal schema across build and test jobs.
Yeah, we can always adjust the hard-codedness later. Yeah. As I say, I mean, if we're putting this into its own repo, I'm more than happy to get this merged and start running it, and then we can go back and say, yeah, I don't like that bit, or I'd like those labels to change. So yeah, I think if you work with Brad and get a repo created and merged, I think, as I say, this is awesome work. We should definitely we should get it merged soon.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Cool.
All right. Adam, did you have anything?
Nope.
Okay. Stuart?
No, I don't think so. Nothing particular holding me up at the moment. Yeah, I've just been installing some stuff on the JCK machines. I've got a pull request in to add gedit and GNOME terminal, because they need some sort of X application on there to be able to cut and paste things in and out of the JCK suite. So I've got the pull request in. I've ran that on the, even though it hasn't been accepted, I've run it against the X Linux machine, which Simon was using, so that unblocks him. But yeah, if someone can approve that pull request, that'd be good too.
I've already approved it.
Ah, okay, cool. Cheers. I know it works, so yeah, thanks.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, George.
Yeah, mainly 2 build machines from Tim in SoftLayer, Windows ones, and one of them kind of got forgotten about. So I've gone back and worked through it, but I'm being sort of very careful about Ansiblizing it all, because I was aware of how many sort of patches went in to get the OpenJ9 machine properly building. So I've been going through the Windows playbook quite intensively with a fine comb and just adding the extra bits that we're still missing. There seems to be quite a few dependencies, and we're still having a few quirky bugs. In doing that, I've also noticed that the OpenJ9 Windows builds have never been code signed. that might affect you, Stuart. I'm not sure. The sign tool was missing, and the build job wasn't failing, so I've rectified that. I've also noticed that the OpenJDK build repo hadn't been setting the description line correctly for the Java version, so I've updated that. And other than that, I've just been going through the battle of switching from Ubuntu to RHEL and CentOS build machines. We're having a bit of an issue with the S390 machine that Brad kindly finished off. So I requested that one be fixed. But yeah, other than that, we're pretty much there. So all the hotspot builds are building pretty much at the lowest glibc version that we can now. And the plan is to migrate the OpenJ9 builds across as well when we have released this first release. I think because we're already partway through a release, Stuart wants to keep the Ubuntu level that we were on. But other than that, just been doing some basic infra tasks and stuff.
Excellent. Does anybody else have anything they would like to add?
Has anyone mentioned there's a conversation starting up about shared IDs?
Yes, that's what I was just going to bring up.
And whether we think it's a good idea or a bad idea. We tend not to like it internally.
So just for the background, this is the JCK machines for people to go ahead and run the manual tests. And for those that haven't noticed, we've had a lot of issues created suddenly for, I think there's about 5 people at the moment to be added to every JCK machine to basically be able to go in and VNC in, run the manual tests. I'm personally arguing that it kind of gets a bit complicated and it might be easier to just have a shared user that we create and we keep the password in the JCK repo somewhere. And we can even change that regularly if necessary. I think Stuart's argument was perhaps that if people wanted to fetch private code, they'd need an IDRSA and they wouldn't perhaps want to share that, which makes sense. But I wasn't sure whether the bot key could just handle doing that. I don't know, Stuart, whether you'd seen my comment there.
I haven't seen any additional comments, I don't think. Do you want to go over it again?
I was basically just saying, you know, you said about people wanting to fetch private repos and using their personal IDRSA keys. And my sort of question back to you was, surely they're only going to want to clone the JCK repo and they can do that using the build bot key that would already be on the user account that we use.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I did see that. I think I replied to it as well. I think my only concern is that at that point, if you're putting the BuildBot private key on there, then they could copy it off and use it elsewhere, which I don't think you would normally want to do. You're effectively giving anyone access to the BuildBot key.
But anyone that has access to the JCK machine, we've trusted to have, I suppose, yeah, it gets a bit complicated.
It's authentication against GitHub that's the issue. They're authenticating as someone else, effectively.
I mean, I would argue that anyone that has access to the JCK repo could go and ship out the source code anywhere anyway, right?
Yes, they can do.
So, I mean, anyone in the JCK team that's trusted to run manual tests, probably we would say, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, basically, we probably trust them. My concern is more that we're talking about a private key here, and the private key would normally, you know, should be private. Right. Not too bad when we know all the people that are actually doing it, but that may not be the case in the future.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, sorry.
No,
it's okay. On you go. No.
Well, see, individual accounts become a nightmare to manage moving forward. I like the idea of having the tester account. It's probably the best way to control it, but I don't like the idea of allowing everybody, like by everybody, there's a fair number of people that want to have access. They shouldn't have access all the time. It's just going to become a mess to try to know whose files are whose, and we need to ensure that people aren't storing stuff on the machines because they'll run out of space pretty quick.
Yep, that makes sense. I think that was my other concern, Stuart. Of course, if we have multiple user accounts, we'll probably have multiple clones of the JCK repo. Before we know it, we'll fill up our little JCK machines quite quickly.
That's possibly true, yes. But if you have multiple users, they might be creating them in their own directories anyway under the home there.
Yeah, that's very true.
I mean, if you've got multiple people logging in and doing stuff, then yeah, you run that. I mean, I know I would be creating my own one, so I knew exactly what I had personally.
Right, that's fair enough. Okay.
Could we have some kind of booking system so that when somebody requests a machine, password gets changed to something for them, and then when they finished with it, it gets changed back to something that no one knows, and then as part of that process, it could clean up what was left behind.
A reservation system would be awesome. I don't think
know
we're
it takes
close to being there or anything.
No, just a thought.
I mean, we could find a way of Ansibilizing it, right? That'd be pretty easy. We could pass it a variable. We could run it every week or whatever, change the password anyway, and then if people use it, they log in, fetch the password, the output section or whatever, and tell them what it was for that week. And then it means that, you know, I assume we could just randomly generate a password in Ansible, set it, and then let them know that password for the week, and then that means that they've only got a week's access. Don't know how people feel about that.
That might be good. I prefer to stay away from passwords as much as possible and validate keys, but
This is VNC access, though. Can that be done with keys?
oh, VNC. Oh, the way that's set up, no, it's going to be yeah, it's going to be a password.
Actually, yeah, it's only the VNC key that we have to change, right? Is that correct, Stuart?
VNC key? What do you mean?
Well, sorry. So the VNC has a username and password.
It doesn't have a username; it just has a password.
So it has a password, and then that then takes you to the machine login, which needs a user account. Is that correct?
It just has an X display that's running as that user. There's no login through VNC.
Ah, ideal. So it would literally just be the VNC password, and it would be bound to the tester user, and off we'd go.
Yeah, it's running as the test user. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That would make sense then. So yeah, we just basically reset that VNC password every week, and then share that VNC password with them. I like that.
Yep.
So right now, though, we haven't got VNC auto running, have we? It's just installed, and people have to start it manually. Is that right, Stuart?
Yeah.
That's what I thought we had.
Yeah, that's right.
So the user running the test, part of that would be to spin up VNC and set a password.
Currently, but what we're trying to say is that we're going to try to control it and set the password for them. So
the VNC password is not the same as the user account password, so you'd have to set that differently or separately.
Okay.
Would we need to change the user account password? So the user account, let's say we create JTK tester user, and that's set with the password. We then spin up VNC tied to the JTK tester user account. Do we have to change the JTK tester password or just the VNC password for that display?
The JCK tester should not actually have a password. It should be prohibited and only logged in through keys.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yep.
And so they then would not be able to start up VNC. They would not be able to change the VNC key. Only we would with our keys.
That's correct.
That works for me then. And then we just we change the password for VNC each week and let them know what it is. That seems like a reasonable solution to me.
Yeah, I mean, do we even need to change the VNC password at that point? Is there any requirement to do that, bearing in mind that in theory you won't be able to get into it unless you have an SSH key? Does that
general safety?
Yeah. I think there's no harm in having more barriers, especially as these machines are holding confidential information. You know, we are under a pretty strict license to not share the JCK. I think we should probably be as tight as we can.
So would we be changing the JCK test user's key frequently, or once I've got that key, I can access the account forever?
No, so it's going to be controlled by Keybox. So I would remove you when I want to.
Right. Okay.
So you'll never have its key. Your key will be a part of it.
I'm with you.
Right. Okay. I think what would make sense is if someone's got 5 minutes, if they could type this up and put it in a README somewhere or an MD, just so that we can point the JCK users at that. Because obviously, I know that we're under, well, I don't know about other people, I'm certainly under a lot of pressure from, I think it's Irina, or yeah, Irina. He's very keen to get VNC testing started about 4 hours ago. So, yeah. If we can get something written down today just to confirm that's our plan, I think we all agreed on that. That would be ideal.
Who's going to do that?
Who's delegating? I can do it if necessary. I might have to bounce back at you, Brad, just to confirm that, but I'm happy to write it.
Yeah, you pop something up, and then we'll all chime in and update it.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
So on the subject of Irina, I saw that email as well, and I was a bit confused because she was talking about OpenJ9 VNC testing on OpenJ9, and I piped up saying, yeah, we've done this, and then I realized they were adopt machines. Is there an overlap here, or are they the same thing?
So she's interested in using the Docker images that we generate, I believe, and I think her key interest is in us saying our Docker images are JCK compliant. So as I've explained to her, our Docker images will not be JCK compliant until they are JCK compliant on the website, and Stuart has essentially cut that release. So the moment we've confirmed JCK compliance on OpenJ9, we will cut the new release. It will appear on the website as the latest release, and then the Docker images will start building that. So I think that's kind of where she's interested. But obviously, I've said I mean, I don't know the status of the automatic tests. That's probably more of a question for Stuart on the testing call. But I've said, we haven't run anything manual right now, which is, I think, why her next sort of step is quick, let's run something manual so that we can get this pushed out.
Yeah, Simon's already started running through those on x86. Truman is getting up to speed on it as well.
Cool.
So Stuart putting VNC on those 390 machines, the JCK machines, the adopt ones, ticks the box as far as Irina is concerned, or at least helps us move us towards a place where she can.
She just wants to get those user accounts created so that they can start running the manual tests. That is her main priority right now, I think. So as long as those people in the issue have some form of VNC access, she's happy. I don't think she's that fussed how it happens as long as they have access.
That's correct. Yeah, just that they can get on with the work. Really understandable.
Yeah. So the fact that VNC is on those boxes and they will be able to start them, then that's good enough.
That's correct.
Okay,
right.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm talking to all the appropriate parties sort of fairly constantly in various discussions on Slack. So yeah, I'm keeping ahead of whatever issues they come up with.
Thanks. Cool. Okay.
Obviously, that pull request was part of that.
Yes, that'd be ideal.
All right. If there's nothing else, anyone?
No, I'm good.
Okay, we'll call this to a close. Thanks everybody for joining, and talk to you next week.
Cheers, Brad.
Cheers, Brad. All right.